If we're going to look at the global pandemic, of course, any vaccine that's actually gone through the necessary clinical trials, the research, publications, peer review, everything is welcome, right? So long as we can prove one, that it's safe, first and foremost, that it must be safe. Two, it actually works. It raises the right antibodies that neutralize yung virus. Not the wrong antibodies, which can actually make an infection worse.
Mm.
Nangyari na yan in the past. That has happened already enough times so that people are very worried. Nangyari na yan in the 1960s. But I think we have an even more recent example, the dengue
Mm.
vaccine.
Mm.
Dengue vaccine. That was a vaccine that seemed to work very beautifully in the clinical trials. But when it got to one bigger scale clinical trials, doon lumabas that there's a small segment of patients that if they give the vaccine prematurely, potentially the real infection with dengue actually makes the situation worse, can give you a more serious condition. So that's
Mm.
what we need to be able to surface in all of these clinical trials. Does this particular vaccine cause such problems or even other problems in the future? Every single company or institute that's doing clinical trials or developing a vaccine must commit that every single volunteer from phase one all the way to phase three must be monitored for a minimum period of 6 months to 1 year after para sana lumitaw yung mga side effects if ever anything will come out.
Mm.
First and foremost is always safety because you're giving a vaccine to people who are well.
Okay.
And then suddenly you will cause problems for them. Masama yun, di ba? It's not a good
Mm.
situation. Now, the institute itself in Russia that's doing it, Gamaleya Institute, they are very well renowned. They have good scientists there. The problem is the total lack of transparency. All we have in information before all this news came out was that they had a phase one trial, volunteers supposedly, na total of 76 people who were inoculated to see what was the safety profile, at least in these first few people before moving out to several hundred, before moving out finally to massive clinical trials of at least, we're talking 30,000 patients. So you need to get to that scale before you can actually certify na talagang safe yung produkto mo. So
Mm.
that's, I think, where most of the concern is. If the vaccine was ineffective to begin with, it did not induce the right neutralizing antibodies. Yes, of course, we can all get the COVID disease again, right? So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what,
from an outside source, but I mean
right.
from the vaccine itself. Has
The
that
vaccine
ever
itself,
happened?
if you, it again depends on the kind of vaccine that you created. You see, there are at least four different forms of vaccine.
Mm.
The one of the Russians is using a adenovirus vector. There are other companies out there who develop inactivated or weakened coronavirus vaccine.
Mm.
If you take a weakened coronavirus vaccine and for whatever reason your own immunity is unable to respond to that weakened vaccine, that weakened vaccine can put weakened virus can potentially cause the disease in yourself. So it
Mm.
depends on the kind of vaccine that was developed. Now, the example you gave, flu. Flu is an inactivated virus. Simply, there is no chance that that dead virus will cause flu in you. But it may not be 100% effective in preventing disease because different strains, but it may train your body to be able to respond to a flu infection and keeping the infection period much shorter rather than the usual course of, say, 2 weeks, baka nagiging 3 days lang.
Mm.
That's what we see at least with the flu vaccine. So we keep our fingers crossed, and we, of course, that's why we have to do the trials in large populations to precisely see kung ano nangyayari when a person receives the vaccine in a bigger population rather than just less than 100 people, right?
Yeah.
You cannot really extrapolate from 100 to suddenly millions. The Department of Health can copy paste what they're already doing, right? For certain vaccines, magandang uptake, meaning the population that they target, they love it. They actually go for it, right? Number one na dun yung pneumonia vaccine for the elderly. These
Mm.
vaccines, nauubos talaga. Walang excess supply at all with the Department of Health warehouses because the local government have figured out that by doing certain actions, doing mga promotional events, you can get the senior citizens to all come in and receive the vaccine. So mabilis. You can ride on with these types of programs that the Department of Health and the local government already have. You can actually roll out the vaccination very quickly, and you can easily vaccinate 1 million people in less than a year. At least
Okay,
the
but
elderly.
yeah, but the planning.
That's in the provinces, ha? Provincial yan, wala pa yan sa city.
Oh, so kayang-kaya ng DOH yan based on your
At least the
experience.
provincial, yeah. I mean, like working with them, we work with them, we will work with the local governments to drum up the excitement for the vaccine. People come talaga to receive it. May recipients
Okay.
talaga. Requiring individuals for vaccination is probably something that's bordering on there are a lot of ethics surrounding that. So I don't want to
Hmm.
get into that particular.
No, no,
Do you
no. I mean,
require it?
hindi, yung swab testing, required ba yun? Is it necessary to swab test or clear? Kasi hindi ba sa dengue, sa dengue ganon, parang sinabi nila, check mo muna kung nagka-dengue na o hindi. Ngayon, with the vaccine for COVID-19, assuming magkaka-vaccine, kailangan pa bang magpa-test tayo ng kung nagka-COVID o hindi?
I think that's a question we need to see the results of the clinical trials ongoing now to see whether there was any particular side effect, because that's a big unknown, right? At this point in time, what does a vaccine do in somebody who has one, active infection, or two, a past infection? Lilitaw at lilitaw yan when you start rolling out major clinical trials. So at this point in time, I don't believe we have the answer to it.